essentially what I'm going to be talking about today is part of a new project that essentially kind of seeks to kind of think through what I'm calling kind of the queerness of kind of illegibility or the queerness of really sort of inaudibility in Black popular music. And it's what I'm talking about today is in part a draft that I am doing for an upcoming sort of edited volume. So of course, questions, feedback, all of that is welcome. So essentially by now, most of us in popular music studies are very much familiar with the narrative of U.S. copyrights regulation of sampling and rap. As the story typically goes, over the past 25 years or so, a significant number of record labels have filed high-profile and high-priced lawsuits against hip-hop practitioners for really the alleged kind of unauthorized use of copyrighted material. These lawsuits, which have only increased in frequency and in monetary amounts, have notably forced hip-hop producers to either pay kind of an exorbitant amount to continue sampling, on the one hand, or perhaps on the other, they have been forced to really abandon sampling outright and move instead toward live instrumentation or synthesized made beats. But for me, sort of what is it, I want to know sort of what if this narrative, as I've just outlined, as we're typically familiar, isn't quite actually accurate? What if, under such copyright surveillance, hip-hop producers have actually developed other alternative strategies of resistance? So in what follows today, I want to think through these questions by focusing on a generally unexplored and rather unknown sampling technique. It's called ghosting. So in the strictest sense, in terms of the journalist Dave Tompkins has noted that ghosting, quote, involves playing over the original sample with various synthesizer phrases and drum programming, and then actually extracting the sample and leaving its rhythmic after effects in the mix, end quote. Hip-hop super producer Timothy Timberland Mosley is most closely associated with this technique of ghosting, and he's compared ghosting to remixing a record, where he, quote, sort of adds another beat around the original beat, and the original beat being the sample, and then take that original beat out and put my beat through. So very much like a ghost, the sample exists, but it's not legible under normative modes of perception. Really, to the ear, there's no there. And yet, while the sample is aurally absent, it still remains rhythmically and extra-aurally present. So essentially, to kind of sort of break it down, ghosting a producer's making a record that includes a sample, he or she then builds all the sounds around that sample. But because of copyright infringement concerns, removes the sample. So the sample is actually still in there, but you can't actually hear it. The sample has been ghosted. It lives in between the space of absence and presence. So importantly, the Timberland has really expanded the strict definition of ghosting to include a wide range of really related tactics that really allow him and others to sample a recording while still eliding oral and by extension legal evidence and legal protection. This has frequently involved the voice, where he distorts his or a featured artist's voice in a way that approximates a vocal sample that's used in a recording, a move that consequently renders really the divide between the live recorded voice and the sampled voice very much kind of indistinguishable. So much like the original concept of ghosting, the sample is still present, the vocal sample is still present, but it's rendered really inaudible to the point that it feels absent. So in what follows today, I want to explore the complex musical and extra-musical implications of ghosting. Musical in the sense that I'm interested in explicating how ghosting allows sampling to thrive without issuing the auditory evidence, the kind of orally kind of recognizable sound material itself that largely determines the outcome of copyright infringement. So that's the kind of musical side. The extra musical side here is that I'm very much interested and concerned with what Timbaland's use of the technologically mediated voice and his expansion of the parameters of ghosting might mean for how we think about the relationship between music, time, and the body. Indeed, if samples are sound materials that are very much removed from an old recording and then manipulated in order to create a new track, then samples and sampling are inherently sites of spatio-temporal movements and exchanges. They produce an intermingling of past, present, and future, as well as the overlapping formations of the then and there and the here and now. As such, the ghosted voice raises a question of what it means to be a sample, to simultaneously be a living human in the present, as well as the past. Such a question speaks to three very much recent moments and conversations within interdisciplinary scholarship. The first being the temporal turn in queer studies. The second is popular music studies' recent attention to really the musical co-laboring between the living and the dead, what Jason Staniak and Benjamin Pike had called really the intermundane sets of collaborations. And lastly, the work by African American studies scholars like Alex Wahelier, and thinking through really the sociocultural implications of technology and humanism in the Black body and Black popular culture. So this paper seeks to use ghosting as a way to bridge these conversations in queer, popular music, and critical race studies, and to do so in such a way that expands the work of queer color approaches to popular music. In particular, I'm interested in using ghosting in order to develop what I'm calling a queer of color hermeneutics of sound, a very much alternative listening practice or frame of orality that helps us listen to and imagine differently the sets of relations between race, gender, sexuality, and subjectivity. Now, perhaps surprisingly, I want to look at the 2006 Timbaland-produced song Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake as an entryway into ghosting and its musical, extra musical, and queer color stakes. Now, no need to worry, I'm not going to be exploring the blue-eyed, kind of appropriated soulness of Justin Timberlake. Not going to happen today. Instead, I'm choosing Sexy Back